The Florida Gators, man, when it comes to me talking about Kentucky football, every time I make a video about the Wildcats, there are always Tennessee fans in the comment section going at Kentucky fans. And I see why you Kentucky fans don't like Tennessee fans. It's like, we get it. Tennessee is the big name program. You know, you've coming off a really successful season. We get it that Kentucky had a down year and you guys won the Orange Bowl. You guys nearly could have made it to the college football playoffs. Like, we get it. We get you're one of the biggest brands in the South. Like, Kentucky fans just want to hear some good things about their team every once in a while, but y'all like some dogs. Y'all don't want Kentucky to have no joy. Like, I see why Kentucky fans do not like Tennessee fans, because Tennessee fans be on Kentucky fans' throats. And it's even worse that Tennessee, even though they have all these down years, they still are somehow able to beat Kentucky. Like, even when Kentucky's at their best, they still struggle with Tennessee. So that leads me to this, man. The Wildcats or the Vols, which team is going to be better this season? Now, when we start at the quarterback position for both of these two teams, Tennessee has Joe Milton. Now, I like Joe Milton. And Joe Milton had a really good performance in their victory over Clemson in the Orange Bowl. He also won MVP of that game. But the caveat with Joe Milton is that you don't know if he's going to be able to remain consistent. You don't know if the Orange Bowl game was just a one-off performance, and if he's going to revert back to the same quarterback that has the world's strongest arm, but just throws the football 50 miles into the seats, or is he actually going to be able to finally put it all together now that he's had time to sit back, learn this system, and develop as a quarterback with Josh Heupel as the head coach? We will see. Kentucky, they got Devin Leary at quarterback. And if you're not familiar with Devin Leary, he was probably the best quarterback in the ACC over the past 2 seasons. Now, last year, he had an injury that pretty much sidelined him for the majority of 2022. But when he was healthy and at his best, he had one of the best touchdown interception ratios in all of college football. And he was doing this at NC State, by the way. And he was one of the highest rated quarterbacks coming out of the transfer portal cycle. And he got picked up by Kentucky. And he has Liam Cohen as his offensive coordinator. Now, who the hell is Liam Cohen, JT? He's their offensive coordinator. Now, the reason why you really need to pay attention to Liam Cohen, if you're a Tennessee fan, because you Tennessee fans need to know who Liam Cohen is, because you always got your nose in Kentucky's football business. You need to know about why Liam Cohen is going to be a big factor for why this offense can be really good this year. You remember that season when Will Levis was really good? This was the season that led him to having all of the preseason, the first round draft hype. Liam Cohen was the offensive coordinator that season for Kentucky. And then they had their best season ever with Mark Stoops being their head coach on offense. And then he departed one season with the LA Rams to be on their coaching staff. And then he comes back and he's going to be able to get this offense performing at a way higher level than it was last season behind Rich Scangarello, which I don't know why they hired him, because I knew that dude wasn't a good offensive coordinator from him whiffing when he was calling plays for the Broncos. But you got to upgrade that offensive coordinator. And now that you have a legitimate offensive coordinator that's running a pro-style NFL-based offense, that's going to elevate a guy like Devin Leary, who is an upgrade at quarterback from Will Levis. Like, Will Levis, I don't know how he was ever regarded as a first-round pick, but every time the game was on the line, he always sold. I would never forget that game when he fumbled against Ole Miss, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you Kentucky fans won't forget that game neither. Devin Leary's way better with the football. He's just a better, more polished quarterback than what Will Levis ever was. So when it comes to the quarterback advantage between the Vols and the Wildcats, I think we got to give it to Devin Leary in Kentucky. And even you Tennessee fans, like, if y'all can put your bias aside, which I know you won't, but I'm pretty sure y'all would take Devin Leary over Joe Milton in a heartbeat. Joe Milton has more upside. He's more talented, but he's just not a better, more proven quarterback than what Devin Leary is right now. And it doesn't matter if Devin Leary never played in the SEC. Neither did Hendon Hooker. Neither did Joe Burrow. If you're a good quarterback, you're a good quarterback. their wide receiver position is really interesting. Now, I think that Tennessee's wide receivers have more depth. I think that they're just a more talented group. I think Kentucky really just has 3 really good wide receivers that I think are just as good as Tennessee's 3 best wide receivers. But outside of the 3 receivers that Kentucky has, Berrien Brown, Dane Key, Tavian Robinson, I don't think they have too much talent outside of those 3 guys. So I'll give the advantage from a depth perspective at wide receiver to Tennessee. Bro McCoy, you got Dante Thornton, I think it's Dante or Deontay Thornton from Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. You got Squirrel. So Tennessee has a lot of depth at wide receiver, and you got to have a lot of depth at wide receiver because Tennessee runs a high, fast-paced offense. But I think Kentucky could have one of the best receiving corps in the SEC this year. You got Berrien Brown, Dane Key, who were 4 stars coming out of high school. And that's something that you really got to know, and you really have to note in your brain when it comes to the wide receiving corps for Kentucky, because they're not a school that always gets 4-star and 5-star guys, especially on offense when it comes to their skill position. So the fact that they got Berrien Brown and they got Dane Key, that was some really big pickups for them in recruiting. And they both got significant playing time last season as true freshmen, and they were really good. And with them going into their sophomore seasons, they should only get better, having a better quarterback. You have the fact that Devin Leary is really accurate. He's a better decision maker. He's going to get these boys the ball, and they're going to make a lot of plays. So I think with the talent that Kentucky has at wide receiver, I don't think they're better than Tennessee from a depth standpoint, but I think that their top 3 receivers are just as good as Tennessee's top 3 receivers. Running back, I don't know. I probably would say if we're going off proven production right now, I probably have to give it to Tennessee. They got 2 of their leading rushers from last season coming back. But Kentucky, though, they're a team that's really good at getting the most from the running back position. So even though they may not have a guy who may be as proven, I still think that they should be given the benefit of a doubt. So I'm going to call running back a draw. Now, the offensive lines, Kentucky's offensive line was terrible last year, which is uncharacteristic for this program because they normally do a really good job with their offensive line. Tennessee has a lot of experience on their offensive line, so you probably could go Tennessee. I probably will go Tennessee. You just don't know how improved Kentucky's offensive line is going to be. Even though I don't think it's going to be bad, I just don't know if it'll be as good as what it used to be. Now, defensively, I mean, come on, bro. If you think that Tennessee has a better defense than Kentucky, you know you tripping. You know you wilding. Even you being a Vols fan, you can admit that Kentucky's going to have a better defense than you. Like, if you think that Tennessee's going to have a better defense than Kentucky, we just know that you're incapable of being able to be unbiased when it comes to giving a fair analysis of your team, because Tennessee's defense is never going to be better than Kentucky's. You want to know why? Because Tennessee runs too many plays on offense. So with their defense being on the field for 1 million plays every single game, they're going to get more fatigued quicker. And unless you got a lot of depth at every single position on your defense, you're not going to be able to keep those guys fresh. Those guys are going to get tired way faster playing for a school like Tennessee that runs this high-paced offense that produces a lot of plays versus playing for a school like Kentucky that plays complementary football. Running a style of offense that is even kill, pretty slow paced, and it also allows their defense to sit on the sidelines and get longer breaks. And they got a lot of talent on their defensive line. Like, Kentucky is going to have one of the best defensive lines in college football this season. Like, the way that they keep talking about this defensive line, they are so excited to unleash this defensive line on the world. This is the most talented defensive line that the Wildcats have ever had in program history. Like, they got some dudes on this D-line, and they're not 3 2-star guys that you think Kentucky just brings in and develop. Like, they got some 5 4-star monsters on that defensive line. Like, all Kentucky fans talk about is how good this defensive line is going to be. So Tennessee's defensive line, they got some pretty good athletes there. I do think that their pass rush will be a little bit more improved this year, but overall, I just think with the style of offense that Kentucky runs, it's just more beneficial to their defense versus Tennessee. Like Chip Kelly, that's the reason why his defenses were never good when he was coaching at Oregon, because their offense was just too damn fast. So if you have an offense that runs a lot of plays, your defense is going to be on the field for hell of long. So of course, you're never going to have a good defense. Now, Tennessee's defense isn't as bad as what people make it out to be, because let's not act like they didn't just go on the road and just shut out LSU. I like how people just throw that game underneath the rug like Tennessee didn't just do those boys dirty in their own home. Like nobody ever talks about that game. Like Tennessee's defense, when they're playing their best, and like they can force turnovers, they're a really good defense. But if they can't get turnovers and they got to be on the field for long, substantial drives, they're going to get tired out really fast and they're going to give up a lot of points. They're a turnover-dependent defense. Kentucky, I think their secondary should be really good, although they may be lacking in experience there. But their front seven is really good, and this defensive line is downright scary. So a couple of days ago, I did a segment saying that I believe Kentucky is going to be the second best team in the SEC East this year, and I still stand on that. And with me making that statement, I'm telling you that Kentucky is going to be better this season than Tennessee. I think that Kentucky is going to be a 10-win team, and they're going to make it to a New Year's Six bowl game. I know they got some really tough games. You got to play Georgia. But one thing about Kentucky is that they play Georgia pretty close, even on some of their down years. Now, last year they weren't good, but before that, they normally gave Georgia some challenges. Now, it wasn't, one of those games where it came down to the last possession. They didn't challenge them that way, but every time Kentucky normally plays Georgia, or at least the Kentucky-Georgia matchups that I remember over the last couple of years, like, it wasn't Georgia just dragging them up and down the field like how they did Tennessee last year. Like, it's kind of one of those games where Kentucky is able to stay with Georgia, at least until halftime, and then Georgia just gradually pulls away. Because Kentucky is a more physical team than what Tennessee is. And when you're able to be physical, it doesn't matter how good your passing attack is. Like, you still got to be able to win up front. And with Kentucky being able to win front, they're always going to be able to somewhat give themselves a shot anytime they play Georgia. And if Devin Leary is as good as what I believe he is, and he can be the same quarterback that he was pre-injury at NC State, he probably could arguably be the best quarterback in the SEC this year. This is probably the best quarterback that they've ever had since the dude that they had in like the late 2000s. So I'm looking at Kentucky. I think they're going to be a 10-win team this year. Tennessee very well could be a 10-win team, but I don't think they're going to take a major step back. I just think that, with how tough their schedule is, and I think that Kentucky just overall is just a more well-rounded team, I think Kentucky is just going to be better. They're going to have the better defense. Their quarterback play is more proven. Joe Milton could be better than Devin Leary, but you're just banking on potential. You feel me? Like, that right now, Devin Leary is the better quarterback than Joe Milton. I don't really think that should be a debate. We got a larger sample size to judge them off. Devin Leary has started way more games. He's been way better at more games than what Joe Milton has. His best performance was that game against Clemson. He wasn't good when he came in against South Carolina. And the dude had like 10 touchdowns, like no interceptions, but his accuracy still was hit and miss. So Devin Leary right now, like if you're a level-headed Vols fan, we got to agree that they got the edge in the quarterback battle. Like this Kentucky program, y'all need to start paying attention. Like Tennessee fans, y'all always be coming for these Kentucky fans, and I get why, because you're dominating the rivalry, so of course you're going to continue to talk shit, but this season, the tables may turn. Not making any crazy predictions, but those tables may turn. Like, Kentucky may finally give you what you've been asking for. And you better be careful what you wish for, because, what you wish for may not be what you had in mind.